Hi everybody, this is your girl Tia Antoinette here. I have another sermon for you guys today, and I think I want to call it Remember Lot's Wife. That's actually a scripture. I don't recall where it is, but it says Remember Lot's Wife. For those of you who don't know who Lot's wife is, or is not, or aren't really don't really know what I mean when I say that, I'll give you a quick synopsis. Okay, so Lot's wife, of course, was the wife of Lot, and her and Lot and the family lived in Sodom and Gomorrah, I want to say, and there was a whole lot of evil going on in that city. There was just a lot of, sexual sin, and it was just nasty. And I won't get into the details, but there was a lot of stuff going on. And God brought Lot and his family out of that situation. And they had specific instructions that, okay, when you guys are going out the city, don't look back, because God burned that whole city down. And so that's why they had to be delivered, because they needed a place to stay. And Lot was like probably the only man and family who was righteous, who lived God's way as best as they could. And so as their city was burning down, they had specific instructions from God: do not look back, don't look back. And she looked back, and sure enough, she turned into a whole pillar of salt. Now, that is very hard to comprehend. That's very hard. Okay, who turns into salt? Like, how does that happen? But I have just chosen to take the Bible literally. There's some things you're going to understand. There's some things you're not. And it's just better off you either going to believe or you don't. And, I believe. I'm a thinker. I'm very logical. But that's very hard to comprehend. But, if God said it happened, then it happened. And that's it. Anywho, she turned into a pillar of salt because she looked back. And okay, I can't get in her mind and say, why did she do that? I can speculate and think, maybe she remembered the good times. Maybe she was torn. Maybe she thought, well, okay, it's burning now, but maybe if they, rebuild after the fire is burning, it won't be so bad. Who knows? But I feel like she looked back. And this is a lesson that we as Christians should not always look back. I mean, if God has delivered us from something, sometimes we don't have to go back and get closure. Sometimes we don't have to go back. Like, for example, if you are trying to watch your weight, because I always connect everything to food. If you are trying to watch your weight and you have lost a substantial amount of weight, you know what I mean? And maybe just today I'll have some Popeyes. Just today, I have some McDonald's. Now, while I will never say don't have that McDonald's or don't have that Popeyes, on one hand, it could just be a cheat meal, and then you can get right back to whatever it is. But on another hand, that cheat meal could turn into a cheat day, and that cheat day could turn into a cheat week. And next thing you know, everything's out of control, because God does not want us to look back. And in the case of food, if we are struggling with food, maybe we should not go back, because it could go one way and it could be fine, but it could very well turn into something else. Perfect example. I used to work with someone who was very heavyset, very handsome looking guy, but very heavyset and very unhealthy. And so he decided he was going to lose weight. And he did. He lost probably about 100 pounds or more. I'm not sure, but he lost a lot of weight. And I was very happy for him. It was like, great, you did it. God brought you out. You worked hard. Your faith lined up with your works. And look what happened. It was awesome. And then I see him like 2 years later, and he's back big again. And I don't mean 20 pounds big. I don't mean 50. I mean back big again. And it was just like, what happened? He was like, well, I got comfortable, and I decided to have some donuts, and the next thing you know, it's just out of control. So it's very real. It's not me trying to say, oh, whatever. No, this stuff is serious, because if you are struggling with drugs or something, or you struggling with sexual sin, or, flesh, or if you're struggling with something, if God brought you out, sometimes you really have to stay out because you don't know what it's going to turn into. I mean, you've heard about people who have been on drugs and then they get clean and then they feel like, oh, well, let me hang out with the person I used to smoke weed with. Or okay, maybe don't nobody get rehab for weed, but maybe, let me hang out with my friend who I just happen to do crack or cocaine with. And, it's nothing. I'm just going to hang out. Or, maybe I'm going to, I don't know, whatever. And it might be okay, but that demon might just jump back on you and you might get high again, and it might feel so good that all that progress and all the rehab has flown out the window and now you're back high, drugged out. There's a term I'm looking for. I can't think of it. We just have to be careful. I'll tell you another story and then I'm going to end this sermon for the day. I also know somebody who had a great marriage to a guy, and her needs weren't being met in a very important area. And so she kind of started talking to somebody else. And while nothing ever happened, it started off innocent, but then it got very inappropriate. And I'm not going to get into how, but it just got very inappropriate. Nothing that married people should be talking about unless they're talking to their mate. And so she had a conversation with her husband, and she said, look, I need this, this, and that. And she had the conversation. So it wasn't like the husband didn't know. And the husband thought about what she said, and he kind of had a heart-to-heart with God, I believe. And God told him, if you don't get it together and if you don't listen to what she's saying, you're basically gift wrapping her for somebody else. Or, just your marriage could end. You don't want it to end, so you need to listen to her. And so he did. And he started changing and he started, doing better. And instead of her moving forward, because the feelings for that other guy was still there, she didn't stop talking to the guy. And her pillar of salt was now at this point, because she's still talking to the guy and still talking to her husband, still being with her husband and all that type of stuff, she has torn feelings. And let me tell you, people think flirting is innocent, and people think having, extracurricular conversations is innocent because there's no sex involved, but it's not innocent. It can be very dangerous. And you don't want to get to the point where you're torn between your spouse and somebody else. It's not a good feeling. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but it's just not a good feeling. It's not easy. I don't wish that on anybody. So your pillar of salt could be going back to drugs if you've been delivered from drugs. Your pillar of salt could be torn feelings in your marriage, and you just wake up every morning with two people on your mind and in your spirit, and it in your heart is not a good feeling. Your pillar of salt could be, losing all this weight from donuts becoming 50-pound weight gain again, because one thing leads to another, and I lost all this weight, I'm cool. No, it could lead to something else that you don't want in your life. This ain't what you want. So that's about it. To recap, just, if you've been delivered from something, if God has brought you out, just stay out. Don't feel like you can entertain it, because you might be able to, but then again, you might not be able to. So I'm about to head home, and I want you guys to all have a blessed day. Again, if you need prayer or anything, or you want to talk one-on-one, it's no problem. My email address is hairlovesme83@gmail.com. That's HAIRLUVSME83@gmail.com. Love you guys. Have a blessed day. Bye.